G'day and welcome again to the Vintage Time Australia channel, where I pull apart at the moment only vintage SEIKOs. And in today's video we're going to look at this guy here, which is the SEIKO SKYLINER 6102-8000. And this is basically what you get if you take a 6119 movement and take off the automatic stuff, or sorry, a 6106 to be correct, or you take a 6139, take out all the chrono parts and the automatic stuff. This is what you get left over. So the 6102 is the hand wind variant of the 61 series, and yeah, it literally just is that, just hand wind only. So just having a look at the watch here, you can see it's got some pretty good lines on it. It looks like I guess a cheaper version of a King SEIKO, you could say. It's got the sunburst white dial, so same as the King SEIKO or Grand SEIKO, whichever way you want to go. No lume on the dial at all, or the hands, so it just has a black stripe. And yeah, they're just a pretty attractive looking watch. They're relatively uncommon, so they're not something that you see around a whole lot. However, I just happen to have this one here, and I've had this sitting around for ages waiting for service, and I figured I'd finally just do it and get it out the way. So we'll look at the case first, and I'll just turn this over. Now, as it's a what I call a pop top, so it's a press back. I've already popped it because they're a real pain to try and remove on camera. And you can see there all the details. So it is a waterproof, and it's from 1968. So this would have been one of the first 61 series movements to come out, because they came out pretty much in 1968, replacing some of the earlier movements that the SEIKO Dani, or Dini, I'm probably murdering that somehow, produced. And this obviously morphed into the 6105, 6106, 6139, 6138, all that. So this is the basis that it was built off of. And yeah, it's a pretty interesting movement. So we'll just take the back off there and just have a look at it from the back, and we're just going to focus in on the movement there. So you'll see it's a 21 joule movement, which would be considered fully jeweled for a hand winding movement. And it's got basically the same layout as the 6105, 6139, whatever. So you've got the giant balance wheel there, which is roughly the same size as the barrel actually, and that's actually how large these are. You've got the two die fix settings there on the top, which is more like the 6106. You've got the one jewel there on top of the fourth wheel. And then when we go around to the winding bridge, you've got your ratchet wheel there, your winding wheel there, a little ratchet there. So pretty typical of the really all the 61 series layout. But anyway, what we'll do is we'll get the crown out and we'll get cracking. Yes, I've really been slammed with work lately, so I haven't really had much time to make videos. And you'll see the crown on this one, unfortunately, is one of the Swiss style crowns, so it's got the seal built into the crown, which means when that's gone you're supposed to replace the whole thing. Of course they're not available anymore. So alright, so we've got that guy there. Now, yeah, so anyway, as I was saying, I've been really slammed with work and just haven't really had time to make videos. They end up being reasonably time consuming to make. I've got my sort of lighting set up as simple as I can get it, so I'm not spending hours stuffing around with lighting, but it still takes a bit of time. Now what we're going to do is I'm just going to take the movement out. There we go. I'm just going to put it in a movement holder. just adjust the zoom there. There we go. So that's a better shot of the dial. So you can see it's got that really nice sunburst white. And you can just see the black stripe hands. That's just to give it a bit of contrast so you can actually read it. Because when you've got silver hands on what's nearly a silver dial, of course it's going to be hard to read. So we're just going to move those so they're all in line. And now I'm going to get my little plastic sheet and get the hands off. I haven't really been affected by coronavirus at all. If anything, business has actually been better. And I attribute that to a few things. I had a problem with my seller rating on eBay for quite some time. Just due to some sales I had problems with a year ago. eBay punishes you for a year, and now that's finally cleared. And also, as a few of the inquiries have slowed down a bit, I've actually had more time to get tech work done, so I've had more stuff going out. Okay, so I'm just going to work out how that's kept in. Okay, so that is screws on the side. That's what the cutouts on the side of these movement holders are actually for. You can see just there, so you can get the dial screws. So that's why I put those there. One thing I noted with these movements is if the dial screws come out or they're taken out, they're reasonably hard to put in without a lot of handling. So I figured just putting 2 slots in the side of the movement holder was an easy way to deal with that. They're not really designed to take the movement ring though. The reason I didn't design them to do that is the movement rings, most of them are the same, but you get the occasional ones that aren't. So I would have had to make 2 cutouts in the movement holder for them, and then that may not deal with every movement ring. So I decided just not to account for it. I may change that later on, but that's why I made that decision. And this is just proving to be a little bit fiddly. We will get it. Yeah, eBay is a bit of a funny animal. They change their policies on a regular basis. And I wouldn't say they're the best at letting you know that they've changed. You normally find out when someone starts a case against you and you're not really quite sure how to deal with it. In any case, with eBay now, I've switched everything over to DHL Global Mail. I've stopped using the post office just because I've had too many problems with them. I would say that the Australian Post Office service, their service overall has dropped considerably in the past few years. And they're a relatively disappointing service to deal with. They don't really lose anything. That's not really the issue. The issue is they're just so slow, and anytime you have a problem, they fob you off or they have to start an investigation, and that can take forever. So they say a minimum 3 weeks to do an investigation on something, and then they never call you back, and you have to chase supervisors and all sorts of stuff. So that is the main reason I've dropped them. And then it can take up to 2 weeks to get something from Sydney to Adelaide, which is just absurd. So we're looking at the calendar. The calendar is pretty much the same as the 6105. There's absolutely no surprises there at all. So I'm just going to take off the calendar plate. And this being a date only, it is a simpler calendar. So yeah, with the DHL Global Mail, basically what they do is they use DHL's network to do most of the shipping, and then they use the post office for the last mile. That does take a bit of the ambiguity out of the service, because it is a fully tracked service. However, it's also faster, I've noticed. So usually they get anywhere within about 10 days. With the coronavirus, the delays have been up to 8 weeks, which has been a real trial to deal with. So we'll just take that calendar plate off there, and that is the entire calendar side and keyless works. So it's basically identical to the 6105. And we're just going to take the click out, which means that we can take the date wheel off. So you see you've got two more die fix settings there. It's on the third wheel and the escape wheel. You've got your hour wheel there, the date intermediate wheel, and there's your calendar wheel, and the keyless works are there. So it uses the complex lever arm type system, like on the 6105, and actually on the 6138, except the 6138 is a little bit different. It has an additional wheel just on top of there, which is for changing the day, whereas the 6105 and other date only movements don't have that. So I'm going to take out all the die fix settings and stuff off camera, because they're pretty tricky to do and I don't feel like losing anything today. If you want to see me removing those, I actually do another video. It's a little bit older now, on the trick to removing them, because the thing with the die fix settings is you don't have to remove the spring, and that's where everyone gets stuck on them. Their original intent was for the spring to be fixed, hence die fix as opposed to die shock. And if basically the way to remove the capstone out of there is you get an oiler in between the little Y section there. I think I might be able to bring this closer. So yeah, so in the little Y section, and I could be pointing at the wrong thing here. Okay, so just in there, and then you just twist the oiler and it releases the spring. It's really easy. And then when you put them in the cleaning machine, just put them flat, but don't put them back in, because they're really hard to get out again. And assuming your cleaning machine is working properly and you've got the right fluids in there and all that sort of thing, they should stay in there. So you see there we've got an additional jewel for the setting wheel. So some of the earlier 6106s and also the Grand and King SEIKOs have that as well. Okay, so we're just going to take off the setting lever spring. I might get a little bit croaky, I've been a little bit crook. And as my throat dries out, I can just feel it scratching. Another thing to note with these, you'll see a different finish on top of the screws with these. So they're kind of like a brush finish. It's always nice to try and keep everything where it's supposed to be. So just take a note if you're pulling these movements apart, not just these, but they did it on all of the movements, just to keep those together so they go back in the right place. Just going to grab this guy here, because these tend to shoot off. And I haven't done my Rodico trick here, it's just because I've done so many of these, I know where to grab them now. But if you're just sort of dealing with them on not that often, I suggest what you do is you put a blob of Rodico just over the corner there, then pull them out, and that stops them from shooting all over the place. Now I'm just taking out that setting lever arm there. These can get a bit sticky because the grease solidifies around that post. So move this around so we've got a bit more contrast. I really have to get a better lighting setup. It's just that to get something that's going to work well is just absurdly expensive, so I haven't done that as yet. Because I need to get like those umbrella lights and all sorts of that, all that sort of stuff. Right. So now I'm just going to take the lever off there and pull the crown out. And so obviously a different sort of winding pinion there because it's a hand wind, so it's a two-part one, which is the same on the 6138. Now I'm just going to take the cannon pinion off. And there you have it, that's stripped. So the bottom barrel arbor is the same as the 6105 as well, the ones that are hard to work with when you're putting a jewel in there. Alright, I'm just going to flip it over. There we go. Now the first thing I'm going to take off here is the balance, because that is the thing that you can potentially damage very easily. Another thing to note with this as well is that it's got the flat screws rather than the rounded ones like you have on the later movements. So the flat screws, normally you only see them on the grounding King SEIKOs. There we go. So I'm just going to take that balance off. And under there it's just identical to the other movements. Now the next thing I'm going to take off is the ratchet wheel. If anyone's got any suggestions for a perfect lighting setup where I don't have to spend a lot of time setting it up and will work on this sort of scale, feel free to put it in the comments. That's also not absurdly expensive. Now this, I can feel a bit of tension on there, so it's going to shoot off, but the problem is it was so gummed up that I couldn't let the power down on it. So there we go, just using the Rodico, I managed to take that off without it shooting across the room. So this stuff here really does save a lot of lost parts on the carpet. Now, interesting fact is that the original Rodico was actually bread dough. And I heard this anecdotally, but I'm sure someone will correct me if I get it wrong. I believe that the watch industry in America was the largest, because it was quite a large industry. You had several watch companies, you know, like Waltham and Illinois Watch Company and all those sorts of places, manufacturing these watches in just massive quantities. I mean, we're talking around the turn of the century up until 1920-ish or so. But and anecdotally, I heard that they were actually the biggest baker in America, because what they used to do is, that's the bottom of that. So what they used to do is they will cook up bread dough for the watch factories to use basically as Rodico. That's what they used to use. They used to use bread dough, and they would cook up huge batches of this stuff every morning for the watchmakers there, because of course what they had, this is before it was all automated, is that they just had lines upon lines of watchmakers at benches assembling these things, and then they had guys at machines that were turning out the wheels and parts and so on, and they would turn those out into baskets or whatever they used, and then they'd get transported over to the assembly area, and you'd have zillions of watchmakers putting these things together by hand. So that's how it used to work before they got machines involved. And yeah, all these guys would use just huge amounts of Rodico because, of course, bread dough, the problem with it is that it does dry out relatively quickly, and when it's dried out it's not so sticky anymore, right? So you can imagine that they'd be changing their blob of bread dough on a regular basis during the day, so you'd be going through huge amounts of bread dough. So that's my interesting fact of the day, and I'm sure someone will correct me if I've got something wrong, but yeah, it's worth having a read on how it was done. As for timing before time graphers, of course the earliest ones used a ticket, well, the earliest electric ones used a ticker tape type system and just put dots on it. But yeah, before then what they used to do is they used to move all the watches to a timing room, and they'd just observe how they run over the course of, I think, a few weeks. And again, I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong there, but the watch would go in there and it'd have a piece of paper next to it, and someone would observe what the variances were over the course of time, and that's how they would make sure that they're within spec. I think time graphers came in the 1930s. I could be wrong there. And of course really became commonplace in the 1950s and 60s when you had the grain of vibrographs and stuff come out. And of course now you can buy them for like $100. Alright, so that's pretty much the end of this teardown. This is really a cool little movement. This came up at the right price. I think I paid $70 Australian for it. Yeah, and it's just really cool. So there you go, that's what's in the 61 series SEIKO SKYLINER. I know I say this every video, but I'm going to try and put some more out soon. I think I've got some interesting jobs here. I think I've got a grand quartz I've got to do, which I don't think anyone's filmed before, so we'll tear that down. And yeah, a few other bits and pieces here. So yeah, alright, I'll try and do some more videos. Time permitting, obviously. If I'm really busy, you're not going to see any videos. If I have, a spare hour or so, which is normally how long it takes to film and prepare these, I'll do one. Alright, thanks for tuning in, and keep subscribe and keep an eye out on what's coming out from me. Yeah, good luck, and as always, feel free to comment. If I've got anything wrong, feel free to correct me. Feel free to put in any nasty comments if you think my videos are rubbish. Certainly some people don't hold back on that, despite me putting in quite a bit of time to produce these for free for your entertainment and information. But yeah, there's something else I was going to say, but I've totally forgotten it. Thanks for watching. Feel free to send me an email. My email, I'm about a week behind, maybe a week and a bit. I'm trying to catch up as best I can, but I get quite a high volume, so I will get back to you. It's just I'll be a little bit slow. I'm still hoping to have that fixed very soon and not be more than sort of a few days behind. Yeah, and I think I'll leave that there. So thanks for watching, and tune in again soon, and yeah, I'll put something up again soon for you. Alright, thanks.